I'd like to ask for the order in the House. The next item of business in the debate on the challenge of procedural grounds of the still unratified credentials of the parliamentary delegation of the Republic of Moldova, document 13962, presented by Mr. Egidius Verreikis on behalf of the Committee on Rules of Procedure, Immunities and Institutional Affairs. I remind you that under Rule 10.3, members of a national delegation whose credentials are challenged shall not vote in any proceedings relating to the examination of credentials which concerns them. I call Mr. Vareikis, rapporteur of the committee. You have 13 minutes in total, which you may divide between presentation of the report and reply to the debate. Please, I ask you to be as
Okay, thank you, Madam. I will try to be as brief as possible because of late time. So, dear colleagues, at the opening of this assembly session, the still unratified credentials of a parliamentary delegation of the Republic of Moldova were challenged on the grounds that for the second consecutive year, the Moldovan parliament was presenting an incomplete delegation which does not allow fair representation of the political parties or groups represented in the parliament. Rule 6.2 of the Rules of Procedure stated that national delegation should be composed so as to ensure the fair representation of the political parties or groups in their parliaments. Firstly, the Moldovan delegation comprises only 7 members instead of 10. Secondly, the composition submitted for ratification does not allow full representation of all the political tendencies in the Moldovan parliament, since one of the main political parties, in the Liberal Party, has no representative in the delegation. The Rules Committee has been sized on the grounds of Rule 7 of the Rules of Procedure in order to verify if these credentials are in compliance with the procedural requirements set out in this rule, and in particular, if the composition of the Moldovan delegation does not lead to the unfair representation of national political forces. This is not the first time that the Assembly is asked to take a position on the challenge of credentials on the ground of lack of fair political representation of political parties or groups. There are few precedents to which the Rules Committee referred to while considering the present issue. In the examination of previous challenges of credentials, it was pointed out that the Assembly must avoid any interference in the internal political affairs of the member state. The Assembly must, in principle, simply ensure that the main political currents present in the Parliament are represented, and in particular that the delegation includes opposition parties. It is in this position that has been enshrined among the principles to be used to assess whether the political parties or groups in national parliaments are fairly represented in the Parliamentary Assembly delegation, as laid down in Resolution 1798 of year 2011. The Rules Committee has a clear mandate. It is not a monitoring committee. Also, it cannot take any decision while totally ignoring the political and parliamentary situation in Moldova. The committee shall not go beyond its remit. Therefore, the present report does not make any detailed analysis of the complex political context currently prevailing in Moldova. However, the Rules Committee noted that the information provided by Moldovan Parliament when transmitting the delegation's credentials is not fully up to date, owing the recent political upheaval when the government under Pavel Filip was set up. Therefore, the draft resolution contains an invitation to the monitoring committee and its co-rapporteur to ensure, within a framework of dialogue with the Moldovan authorities, that the Moldovan parliament is properly informed of the requirements laid down in the Assembly rules and procedures, and that it will take due account of them in subsequent changes to the composition of parliamentary delegation, particularly when filling the 3 remaining vacant seats on the delegation. The Rules Committee also took note of the explanation provided by Ms. Palihovici, chairperson of Moldovan delegation, who explained why the country's parliament was unable to meet within the deadline to formally appoint members already nominated by their political groups. She gave the committee assurances that the delegation will be completed in due time for the Assembly April part session. The Rules Committee therefore proposes that the Assembly ratify the credentials of the Moldovan delegation, but in accordance of Rule 10.1 of the Rules of Procedure, provide for an automatic suspension of the voting rights of its members in the Assembly and its committees with effect from the beginning of Assembly April 2016 part session, if the composition of delegation has not been brought into conformity with the rules of procedure by then. Lastly, the Rules Committee would like to cite the opportunity of this debate to recall that the procedure of verifying the delegation's credentials at the start of each annual session allows national parliaments to update their political representation, taking into account any party political developments that may have occurred within this parliament. Therefore, parliaments must be diligent and make the necessary changes so that the delegation remain politically representative. This particularly applies to the parliaments where majority comes and go in the context of significant governmental instability. Thank you for attention.
Yes, you have 7.5 minutes remaining. And we now come to the list of speakers, but I urge colleagues that be as brief as possible, then we can allow as many speakers to voice their opinion, because we are tight on time. And the speakers list on behalf of the European Conservatives, Mr. Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The European Conservative Group is wanting to support the ratification of the credentials of the Moldovan delegation. I don't think Moldova is the only delegation that has vacancies. I visited Moldova and had the honour of meeting many of the parties and members of the Parliament on a number of occasions. And I recognise that there are political difficulties there at present. And I don't think it is for us to interfere in those internal processes. The question for us is the current delegation in order, notwithstanding that we hope the vacancies will be filled reasonably soon, and I think that the Moldovan delegation have indicated that they hope to have them filled by April, by the next part session. But Madam Chair, we should not punish the other members of the Moldovan delegation because one political party has failed to nominate its representatives. And that, I think, is a very clear principle that should be established in this Parliamentary Assembly. I hope that that party will make its nomination. I'm assured by the Moldovan delegation there is no question of that party being excluded or any move to exclude them. So if some people are tardy in making their nominations, we should not punish an entire Parliament and country for that reason. And I do hope that those nominations will be made soon. As to the question of fairness in representation, I think the fact of the vacancies does not render the current nominations unfair. And I would simply point out that in the delegation of the United Kingdom, for example, the Liberal Democrat Party does not have representation. The United Kingdom Independence Party does not have representation. And these two parties between them secured several million votes in the UK general election. Is anyone suggesting that the UK delegation is unfair in its representation? So I think we need to understand what we mean by fairness. I don't think it applies in this case in any event. The fact that people have not put forward their nominations should not mean that we describe the current composition as being unfair and unrepresentative. I'm confident that this matter can be resolved in a short period of time, so let's get on with ratifying the delegation today.
Thank you, Mr. Donaldson. On behalf of United European Left, Mr. Cox.
Thank you, Madam President. And sorry to say to Mr. Donaldson, but we are dealing here with the rules. So what you propose will lead to the fact that for the rest of the year, the Moldovan delegation will only be entitled, you cannot, but that the Moldovan delegation will be entitled only to have 7 members for the whole year. That's why we challenge the credentials in order to give the Moldovan delegation the chance, the only chance, to have a full-fledged delegation by April. If we adopt the report as it is proposed by the Rules Committee, which was also accepted by the head of the Moldovan delegation because she realized that this is the only chance to have 10 members in April, because you cannot just add members, only under this condition. So therefore, I urge this Assembly to adopt the report of the Rules Committee. It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with to give the Moldovan delegates the chance to have a full-fledged delegation by April. And Madam Pavlovici has said to us in the Rules Committee we will be able to do so there will be no sanctions, there will be no problem for the Moldovan delegation, and they can function as all delegations here. So do not try to invent other rules. We have these rules. This is the way how to help the Moldovan delegation to have a full-fledged delegation by April. And please stick to this. This is a report of the Rules Committee. This is not a political report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. And on behalf of EPP, point of order.
The Rules Committee met this afternoon, and the report was amended. And Mr. Cox was not present, so he's probably unaware of that.
Thank you. Point of order.
I said that the Rules Committee decided to have this report. Amendments, Mr. Gale, we do here. The committee does not amend. There is a report that was proposed, and that was also accepted by the Moldovan delegation, once again, because it's the only way to help the Moldovan delegation to have a full-fledged delegation. And all those who are now reacting could hinder Moldova to have not 10 members in the near future. And that would be a shame.
We continue on the speakers list. On behalf of EPP, Mr. Badea.
Rispettabili colleghi, la Repubblica Moldova è un paese con una democrazia ancora giovane che ha ottenuto dei risultati significativi negli ultimi anni sul percorso europeo, ma la costanza nel proseguire le riforme è stata non poche volte impedita da una serie di sfide interne. L'inizio del procedimento di contestazione dei credenziali della delegazione della Repubblica Moldova può rappresentare un precedente pericoloso per le delegazioni degli altri Stati che per vari motivi non riusciranno a presentare una delegazione completa. Mi rivolgo soprattutto ai membri dell'Assemblea che intendono esprimersi loro opzione di voto in favore alla contestazione dei pieni poteri della delegazione moldava, di agire con obiettività e responsabilità. Di seguito vogliamo esprimere pienamente il nostro sostegno per l'assicurazione del diritto di voto e della partecipazione attiva dei membri della delegazione della Repubblica Moldova ai dibattiti dell'Assemblea parlamentare del Consiglio d'Europa. Gli argomenti presentati dalla delegazione in Moldova dimostrano che la situazione attuale, cioè la composizione così come è stata trasmessa all'APCE per la ratifica, è una di natura puramente tecnica e non rappresenta in nessun caso un conflitto politico. Perciò rivolgo un appello ai colleghi presenti nell'emiciclo per votare la ratifica dei pieni poteri della delegazione della Repubblica Moldavia. Grazie.
Grazie. On behalf of the Socialist Group, Mr. Schenner.
machen, ist auf Deutsch, sagt man, einen Schuss vor dem Bug geben, das heißt eine Warnung. Das ist ja nicht das erste Mal, dass wir Probleme haben. Als früherer Vorsitzender des Monitoring-Ausschusses habe ich zig Briefe an den Präsidenten des moldawischen Parlaments geschickt, um die Vereinbarungen betreffend Delegierte zu erfüllen und dass hier Delegierte oder sogar Berichterstatter nicht aus eigener Tasche das bezahlen müssen. Ich glaube, und vor allem haben wir dann im Ausschuss versucht, eine Formulierung zu finden, die der aktuellen Situation, der extrem angespannten Situation zur Stunde in Moldawien entspricht und hilft. Und ich glaube, dass mit den beiden Amendments, die wir hier angenommen haben und die ich unterstütze, obwohl ich im Monitoring-Ausschuss vor wenigen Stunden einen sehr, sehr ernsthaften Bericht über die Situation, nachdem ich bis zum 23. Dezember in Gefängnissen in Moldawien war, jede Stunde ein Stück weiterer Demokratiekrise eingetreten ist, habe ich die moldawische Seite hier mit 2 Amendments unterstützt, die diese Resolution, glaube ich, auch in Moldawien übersetzen lassen, dass das eine Chance ist, bis zum April das in Ordnung zu bringen. Und ich bedanke mich bei Liliane ausdrücklich, dass sie das Amendment Nummer 3 zurückgezogen haben, weil das war etwas was Wichtiges, dass dieses Amendment zurückgezogen wird und dass man hier nicht dagegen sprechen muss. In diesem Sinne bitte ich Sie, diesen Bericht des Ausschusses zu unterstützen.
Thank you, Mr. Schena. And next, on behalf of ALDE, Mr. Chukla.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Queridos colegas, creo que la palabra clave del debate que tenemos es la palabra perfeccionar. Esta iniciativa es una iniciativa cargada de buena voluntad. Es un mensaje enviado al Parlamento moldavo para que el Parlamento moldavo perfeccione, complete la delegación con todos los titulares y todos los suplentes. Esta es una iniciativa que no va contra nadie. Esta es una iniciativa que no va contra la delegación. Esta es una iniciativa que no tiene ningún argumento político escondido. Esta es una iniciativa que va a favor de las normas. Y esta es la casa del rule of law. Y en la casa de las normas, y que queremos que las normas sean respetadas, también tenemos que pedir que un Parlamento que por 2 años consecutivos ha enviado la composición de su delegación de forma incompleta, complete esta delegación y que esta delegación exprese todo su pluralismo y que si algún partido en el Parlamento de Moldavia ha decidido no participar en esta delegación, que simplemente el presidente del Parlamento envíe una motivación, una argumentación, pero sin esta argumentación y con 3 vacantes en la delegación, nosotros tenemos que ayudar a perfeccionar esta delegación. Y como muy bien decía el señor Cox, estamos discutiendo si perpetuamos, si dejamos por todo un año una delegación solo con 7 miembros o si a través de nuestro voto enviamos el claro mensaje constructivo y democrático entre leales parlamentarios de que el Parlamento de Moldavia debe cumplimentar los requisitos para llegar a los miembros y también a las 3 plazas vacantes. Creo que la fórmula planteada por la Comisión es muy buena, ratificando las credenciales con la condicionalidad de que antes de la sesión de abril se presenten los nombres. Creo que esta es la mejor fórmula, y más cuando ayer en la Comisión de Rules escuchamos a la jefe de la delegación moldava expresando su buena voluntad, su mejor voluntad de hacer posible esto. Señorías, yo fui el responsable de levantarme al inicio de la sesión para presentar este challenge de credenciales. Interpreten esto en el mejor sentido de la defensa del parlamentarismo, de la defensa de nuestros derechos, de protegernos mutuamente en frente de aquellos parlamentos que por motivos de tensiones políticas tienen una actitud de dejar las delegaciones parlamentarias no resueltas al final, y eso es lo que ha sucedido durante 2 años consecutivos. Votando a favor de este informe, nos protegemos y dignificamos el parlamentarismo. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Mr. Chukla. Unfortunately, we can squeeze in only 2 more speakers. Next is Ms. Palihovic.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, I would like to, first of all, to thank Mr. Vareikis for the presented report and to thank also the Secretariat of the Committee on Rules of Procedures for the work done in an operative manner. Colleagues, in this hemicycle, as usually, the most important challenges of the European society and democracy are discussed. This happened this week too. However, we are discussing now the credentials of the Republic of Moldova delegation. We are in favor of current discussions and we will use this opportunity to ensure you that the Republic of Moldova will continue to demand more democracy and is willing to be an active and involved actor of this fora. The Moldovan delegation present today in the room deserves all your support and hopes on your favor vote on credentials ratification. In this context, I consider that in my position of a head of Moldavian delegation, which credentials are challenged on procedural grounds, namely on incomplete composition basis, first of all, I should provide you all information what happened and in order to have details to present or to have a positive vote today for this resolution. The Moldovan delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe is formed of 10 members, 5 representatives and 5 substitutes. After the parliamentary elections which took place in the Republic of Moldova in November 2014, the party which entered in the parliament were invited to delegate their representatives within new delegation. In April 2015, the parliament took the decision and voted a new composition of 8 MPs and 2 seats remained vacant because of the refusal of one party to delegate their representatives. Currently, the APCE Bureau was submitted credentials for 7 members of the delegation. I would like to emphasize that there are objective reasons behind this situation as follows. One former member of the delegation lodged his MP's mandate. His fraction presented a new proposal. The request has been approved by the Bureau of the Parliament at the end of December 2015. According to Moldovan rules, the final decision is taken by the Parliament, which will start the session in February 2016. The Liberal Party fraction, which did not delegate its representative for participation in 2015 at the establishment of the parliamentarian delegation to the international organization, has changed its position and addressed a request to the Permanent Bureau nominating representatives to the delegation. The request will be examined by the Parliament in February 2016. The third request is concerning the Communist Party fraction, which requested the replacement of their substitute. Also, the change, this issue will be voted in February this year. In this condition, I express my full confidence that during this spring session in April, the Republic of Moldova delegation will be fully completed. I would like to ensure that Moldovan Parliament will be diligent in a very short period of time, will make the necessary changes to the delegation and will take care of keeping political representativeness as it is requested. And now, nota bene, at the end, to Mr. Shenach. All letters sent in the address of Moldovan Parliament from the monitoring committee received were answered and actions were undertaken. He is not about letter, he is about technical condition of the Parliament. Thank you, and I hope for your positive vote.
Thank you. And as a last speaker from the speaker list, the floor is yours, Mr. Neguta.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. D'abord, en ce qui concerne le rapport de M. Vareikis, il est ancien rapporteur pour Moldova. Nous pensons qu'il toujours a continué de monitoriser la situation en Moldavie. Et en résultat, M. Vareikis a proposé un bon rapport et un rapport correct. Je vous remercie. En ce qui concerne la délégation de Moldova et les pouvoirs de notre délégation, j'ai déjà parlé dans cet hémicycle en utilisant mon temps dans le cadre de débat libre. Permettez de faire quelques amendements en ce qui concerne notre document. Le Parlement de Moldova a prévu déjà du premier jour de février, quand se commence la session ordinaire, d'examiner cette question. Le Parti démocrate déjà a présenté ses propositions de changer les pouvoirs d'un suppléant en représentant et de nommer un nouvel représentant. Le Parti communiste aussi a nommé un nouveau suppléant. En ce qui concerne, M. Vareikis, le point 6.2 du règlement en ce qui concerne la situation équitable, c'est vrai. Quand nous avons formé la délégation de Moldova, le Parti libéral a fait des contestations en ce qui concerne les candidatures. Mais puis, cette partie devient partie composante de la majorité parlementaire et depuis le mois de septembre 2015, pas de problème en ce qui concerne cette partie. Mais situation en ce qui concerne 5.2 non équitable, mais les partis de Moldova, le Parti libéral ne conteste pas cette situation. Pour nous, de former une délégation équitable, complète, pas de problème. Mais l'insistance de la commission de règlement d'examiner la question des pouvoirs de la délégation de Moldavie seulement en session plénière, nous sommes un peu étonnés. Et ce moment est interprété par notre délégation comme un signal pour d'autres pays. À ce moment, les délégations de 5-6 pays, plus nombreux que la délégation de Moldova, travaillent aussi en componence incomplète. Et nous pensons que la commission des règlements va parler de la délégation de Moldova, mais en même temps, il veut attendre l'attention d'autres pays. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Mr. Neguta. Thank you. We are running out of time, but I ask for your patience. I must now interrupt the list of speakers. The speeches of members on the... Yes.
It's a point of order, Madam Chair,
Yes.
with all due respect. You are aware that on the list of speakers, there are still 3 members of the Assembly. Honestly, it's not our fault because of the fact that both the program and the schedule that's for the debates of this Assembly that were adopted by vote by this Assembly were not respected because of the prolongations of the debates of the previous reports. I will ask, with all due respect, to assure the right of the 3 speakers to have the floor. Thank you.
For me, this is obviously fine. I'm asking the whole Assembly to give permission for this.
Give them a short time.
If I give a slightly shorter time, then we won't run so much over time. Will this satisfy your query? Okay. We'll go back to the list of speakers. I understand that the subject is very important to the speakers. So now, Madame Buliga. Madame Buliga.
Merci beaucoup, Madame le Président. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers collègues, je voudrais vous remercier pour le débat technique d'aujourd'hui dédié à la délégation parlementaire de la République de Moldova, qui j'espère bien sera rapidement aplanée. Je représente la majorité parlementaire qui s'est assumée par l'investiture du gouvernement Philippe un rôle et une responsabilité encore plus importants dans la continuation du parcours européen du pays. On a réussi de créer une majorité consolidée autour d'un programme de gouvernement qui a à la base l'accord d'association entre la République de Moldova et l'Union européenne. Le gouvernement de Chișinău se rend bien compte du degré de complexité de la situation dans le pays et va persévérer dans la continuation de sa lutte légale contre la corruption et pour le renforcement de notre État. Il est très important à ce moment-là de récupérer la confiance de la part du peuple en mettant l'accent sur l'inclusion et l'unité sociale de toutes les couches de la population moldave. La situation interne n'est pas simple, au contraire, c'est très complexe, mais il existe une entente claire et unanime afin de mettre en œuvre des mesures immédiates et des réformes répondant aux attentes de la population. Nous remercions le Conseil de l'Europe et l'Assemblée parlementaire pour l'assistance permanente accordée à la République de Moldova et nous vous invitons à continuer la coopération constructive et tellement nécessaire avec mon pays. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Madam Buliga. And next, Mr. Kiral.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would like to speak also in support of the Moldovan delegation, and I also would like to encourage, as well as my colleague, Mr. Donaldson, to look deeper into root causes of that situation. I think it's not an accident, and I strongly oppose those, Mr. Shukla, Mr. Cox, who are not saying that this is a political, rather the rules issue, because if you read the news today, if you read the news in Russia, Russian media today, Ukrainian media or Moldovan media, this issue already is used for political reasons. And Moldova, as well as Georgia and Ukraine, is among those countries which are striving to split from that domination of the Russian interest there. And of course, the pro-Russian forces will be doing everything they can to stop it from doing that. So I strongly encourage, I'm really sorry that this debate is taking place. I strongly encourage the Assembly to support the Moldovan delegation. It has been very constructive, very much effective and productive, contributing a lot to the work of this Assembly. And as well as Georgia and Ukraine is striving very much to join the European community, sign the association agreements, took the very difficult pace on the reforms, and it needs our support. And we shouldn't be putting the knife into the backs of our very strong friends. I realize it's a very issue which is related to the rules, but let's follow the wish of the Moldovan delegation and support them and stay by their side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kiral. And finally, Mr. Corlatea.
Madame la Présidente, tout d'abord, je voudrais vous remercier pour votre décision antérieure. Mon premier commentaire, tout l'appui pour la proposition formulée par le rapporteur pour la ratification des pleins pouvoirs de la délégation moldave. Mon deuxième commentaire, je suis quand même en désaccord avec les deux autres propositions qui ont été formulées par le distingué rapporteur et je vais m'en expliquer. Pour ce qui est la décision de suspendre le droit de vote de ses membres le mois d'avril, si les choses ne bougent pas dans la bonne direction, je suis en désaccord de mentionner ça dans le projet de résolution. La chef de la délégation moldave a expliqué les raisons objectives. Tension politique, très haute tension politique, absence d'un gouvernement, des manifestations parfois violentes dans la rue qui ont empêché, pour des raisons objectives, le Parlement de faire la nomination pour compléter la liste. Nous avons un règlement très clair qui prévoit les conséquences si les choses ne bougent pas dans la bonne direction. Nous avons ce projet de résolution et nous avons l'engagement des autorités moldaves pour compléter après le 1er février quand la nouvelle session du Parlement va commencer. Donc, je ne suis pas en faveur de faire cette référence qui peut apparaître en tant que menace. Et dernier commentaire, je ne suis pas d'accord de saisir la commission de suivi. Je cite, pour s'assurer que le Parlement moldave est correctement informé des exigences, etc., etc. Je crois, Madame la Présidente, que cette résolution, c'est le plus officiel document pour informer et pour demander officiellement au Parlement moldave de faire son boulot. D'ailleurs, c'est la commission de règlement qui a la compétence de juger cette question de plein pouvoir. Donc, pour toutes ces raisons, je suis contre le saisie de la commission de suivi et je vous remercie encore une fois pour votre décision qui est correcte. Merci.
And that concludes the list of speakers. I call now Mr. Varekis, rapporteur, to reply. You have those 7.5 minutes, but if you could be briefer, we'd all appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam. I will say only a few sentences for clarification. One, I thank the Secretariat of the committee, which is a very experienced, and Secretariat made really the very precise report, so thank you once again. Second thing, what I want to stress, this report is the report of a rules committee. I have sympathies and non-sympathies to somebody or something. I very often disagree with Mr. Cox, for example, but this time I have to agree that this is the rules committee report. And what we discussed, not the sympathy to Moldova, we discussed the possibility to assist country to complete their delegation. So this is a report of kind of help. So I encourage you to support it because it was really the only possibility to permit them to present the full delegation next time. So this is the sentence I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Varekis. Does the chairperson of the committee wish to speak?
Madame la Présidente, merci. Je serai brève également. J'aimerais simplement ajouter à l'excellent rapport présenté par M. Vareikis que nos règlements sont là pour nous protéger, pour nous permettre d'effectuer notre travail dans les meilleures conditions possibles et qu'il ne s'agit pas, en l'occurrence, ni cette fois-ci, ni à d'autres occasions, de punir telle ou telle délégation, mais bel et bien de nous permettre d'accomplir notre travail. J'aimerais peut-être donner une précision. Effectivement, le texte de la résolution que la Commission a adoptée hier propose de ratifier les pouvoirs de la délégation moldave, mais en suspendant le droit de vote si, au début de la partie de la session d'avril, la liste n'avait pas été déposée selon les règlements en vigueur. Et vous l'avez constaté, après l'examen des amendements, aujourd'hui, la Commission a pris une décision contraire, si on peut dire, mais je dois dire qu'elle était dans une composition très restreinte, et je dois quand même à l'honnêteté de le dire ici. Et cette composition contraire particulièrement concerne l'amendement numéro 2, qui modifie le texte initial en proposant de ratifier les pouvoirs et simplement de demander à la délégation moldave de présenter la liste avant le début de la partie de session d'avril. Donc, c'est pour cette raison de composition différente, de participation différente au sein de la Commission, que les deux décisions sont contradictoires et je laisserai l'Assemblée, comme il se doit, trancher dans le sens qu'elle estime le plus juste.
And with this, the debate is closed. The committee has presented a draft resolution to which 3 amendments have been tabled. I remind you that under Rule 10.3, a member of a national delegation whose credentials are challenged shall not vote in any proceedings related to the examination of credentials which concern them. I call Mr. Ciletti to support amendment number 1. You have 30 seconds.
I propose to delete the phrase that is in that amendment because the reason we don't have a full delegation is not that we didn't want to have a fair representation, but because a party didn't nominate their candidates. So the vacant seats are not a result of unfair representation. So to be correct, I propose to delete that phrase in the draft resolution.
Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? No, this is not the case. What is the opinion of the committee on the amendment?
La commission est en faveur.
I shall now put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. And the vote is closed. I call for the result. Amendment number 1 is agreed to. I call Ms. Palihovic to support amendment number 2. You have 30 seconds.
Colleagues, we propose to modify the Article 3 of the draft of the resolution as follows. The Assembly decides to ratify the Moldovan parliamentary delegation credentials and request to the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova to present before the beginning of the Assembly April part session 2016 the updated list of the delegation composition according to the Rule 6.2 of the Rules of Procedures. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? What is the opinion of the committee?
In favor.
I shall now put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. And the vote is closed. I call for the result. The amendment number 2 is agreed to. I call Ms. Palihovic to support amendment number 3. You have 30 seconds.
I withdraw my amendment.
Does anyone else wish to? Yes?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to support this amendment, if you allow me.
Yes, of course.
So I strongly oppose to this amendment that is requesting to the monitoring committee to be in charge to inform correctly the Moldovan Parliament about the request, etc., etc. I think that, first of all, the Moldovan Parliament is informed by all and every channels possible. Secondly, this draft resolution that will be adopted, it will be once again the most official way to inform and to request the Parliament to do the things that are requested. And thirdly, let's respect the competence of the Committee of Rules and not to give a competence which doesn't exist for the Committee of Monitoring Committee. Thank you.
What is the opinion of the committee on the amendment?
The committee
Oh,
is,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Yes, Mr. Schenner.
Compromise, and soon the rapporteurs will go to Moldova, and they speak with the very well-known president of the parliament. And I think, please follow the compromise we found, and the compromise together with the Moldovan was to withdraw this amendment. So please vote against this amendment, because it's clear that in the political talks with the players, we have also to talk about that.
And now I ask, what is the opinion of the committee?
The committee is against.
The committee is against. I shall now put the amendment to the vote. The vote is open. And the vote is closed. I call for the result. The amendment number 3 is rejected. We will now proceed to vote on the draft resolution contained in document 13962 as amended. The vote is open. The vote is closed. I call for the result. The draft resolution in document 13962 as amended is adopted. Congratulations. The Assembly will hold its next public sitting tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the agenda which was approved on Monday morning. The sitting is adjourned. Good night.
Congratulations.